And welcome into the Change Up on WVSSAC Sports. I'm here with Sports Director Matt Digby and also Tom Bill. Thanks for joining us again, guys, and welcome into week 3.
Yeah, it's been a great first 2 weeks. Really looking forward to another great discussion about sports, both on the local and the national level.
Yeah, we got a lot going on, don't we?
Yeah, the exciting thing we got to look forward to, football season finally getting going, the training camps opening up in the NFL, college is right around the corner, and some of these high school camps are getting going too. So we're going to talk to a couple people about what's going on the high school football scene in West Virginia.
Yeah, the other day marked exactly 1 month to go until August 26th. That's the big day everyone's counting down toward. I know some schools won't open play until Saturday the 27th, but that's the big date on everyone's mind right now, Friday, August 26th, week 1 of high school football.
And we're going to talk plenty of high school football here to open up the show. We're also going to talk some PGA Championship later on in the show, and we'll hit up the Major League Baseball standings and see who's fighting for those wild card spots. And also to end our show, we'll talk some college football and some pro football. I know Tom's excited to talk some Patriots.
Oh, I can't wait, man. This Tom Brady thing got me a little bummed out, but I'm confident in the team that the Patriots have this season. I think Jimmy Garoppolo will do just fine.
So that's all to look forward to later on in our show. And you can check us out at WVSSAC Sports on Facebook and Twitter. So make sure you hit us up and download the Change Up for your listening pleasure. All right, starting us off, guys, is Tim Justice. He's a high school football official, very familiar with West Virginia high school football and high school athletics in general. Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us, man. How's it going? You're at the beach?
Man, it's going great, guys. Got my toes in the sand, listening to y'all talk about football. It don't get much better, does it?
That's right.
Yeah, Timmy, how's it been for you as an official? You know, not long to go until August 26th. Days are running out pretty quickly.
You know, this is, people think this is your break period, but, you know, as we speak, the New River Valley, which that's the guys that, you know, I officiate with, our group, right now they're at a meeting going over test rules and those types of things. So it's really, we're just like the kids. We just the only difference between us and the kids is we get a year older and they stay the same age. So, you know, we still got to stay on top of our game.
Absolutely. And Tim, you know, you get a chance to look at so many different teams when you officiate these games. So who are some of the teams that you see kind of emerging this season in our area?
You know, there's I think on the local level, you're going to see a few teams surprise people. You know, Street over at Woodrow, you know, Coach Lilly left. You know, I'm a John Lilly fan. He's always been a great guy to me, but, you know, he's down at Bluefield now. But Street took over. Street's a people person. From what I understand, he has all the basketball kids out. Anybody seen a Woodrow basketball game knows that those kids are very, very athletic. They can run and they can jump. So he's going to be skilled and he's going to be fast. I look for Woodrow to make a little bit of noise this year. I mean, you know, everything's done in the trenches, you know, but skill-wise, I think Street's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, Street Surratt's not the only guy taking over for a long-time coaching figure. You got Larry Cook at Westside, who's no longer going to be coaching the Renegades on the sideline, and also Larry McClintock is no longer the head coach. He's stepping down from Meadowbridge, and Dwayne Reichard is taking the reins for the Wildcats. How big is that in terms of the coaching turnover we've seen in football alone here in Southern West Virginia?
You know, those two guys is, you know, Coach McClintock's a pillar in the community. You know, I did a game for him a few years ago, and I always called him Coach Kilmer from Friday Night Lights. You know, I've never seen a man have more control over his team, fans, and everybody at the football field. Coach McClintock was a great coach. I never played for him, never played against him, but if you're from Meadowbridge, everybody knew Coach McClintock. It didn't matter who he had on the team. He was solid. He was good year in, year out with quality kids, and I don't know how the heck he done it for so long. Larry Cook, great guy. You know, the situation down there is what it is. Great following from anything you do in Wyoming County. They have, you know, big fan support. So, you know, I'm sure they're going to fill the stadium and, you know, be excited.
Hey, Tim, on an official's viewpoint, when these guys change coaching positions and everything, how rough is the start of the season? How important is it to, just avoid those penalties going into it? Do you see it kind of transform the later the season goes, the more discipline comes into play? Is the start of the season probably the roughest part?
Well, the roughest part's usually scrimmage. The scrimmage games. Once the season gets going, you get that first quarter, the jitters out of the way. But the scrimmages is so intense for these kids because they're not only fighting for a job, but you know how it is when you line up in front of somebody for 3 to 4 weeks and you're hitting that same guy, and then finally you open up and you get to start hitting another person. And, man, you want to claw his eyes out, pull his hair. You want to do anything possible because you just get to hit somebody different. And so most of the time what you do is you lay the law down in scrimmage. The scrimmage games, you tell them what you're going to let them do and what they're not. And kids are kids. They're going to adapt to whatever you put upon them. So when you call them out and tell them, hey, you can't do it, they listen up. They got that adrenaline flowing. But kids adapt to about anything.
And speaking of adapting, the game of football has been adapting so much the last couple of years with concussions and all these other things. What are some of the things that you guys are emphasizing specifically for this year as far as rule changes or just different things that you're looking for as officials to try to emphasize?
Well, man, that's a touchy subject for everybody. People need to realize that football is not the old school football. Football is going through a change, whether you like it or not. Everybody loves the big-time hits. We go in our clinic. We were talking about it. We had a meeting last Thursday. We were there, and you talk about the things, even going from the college level to the high school level to the pro level, about what to look for. There's ways that you see these kids that are launching towards the head. Was he launching? Did he leave his feet? The biggest thing you see is anything that's targeted towards the head and the neck area, that's going to be the penalty. If you see them with the crown of their helmet, you might even see this year running backs. You know how it is, old school when a kid would come through the hole, drop his head and run over a few kids. They're taking that out of the game as well. This is so much safety on these kids, and you're always going to have that bunch of people. They ought to not even wear helmets because they're not allowed to hit. Hey, listen, that was their kid. They'd want him protected too, and all they're doing is just cleaning up the game. And people should enjoy it and be happy and satisfied that these kids are going to be able to go out and take a math test tomorrow. They're not going to have to go through a 7-day protocol about concussions. So it's a big thing.
Hey, Tim, with the future of the state and the football, how important is it that the league lets them play 7-on-7s in the off season? Some more time with the coaches and a lot of these football camps. We're seeing more and more football camps pop up. Shady Spring is having one now with some former NFL players like Nate Poole and some of these Marshall grads. How important are these camps and the ability to get these summer practices in?
Well, I personally think they're great because, we learn from the people above us. The people above us teach us. It trickles downhill. So when you see a guy that, a Legursky or somebody that comes in teaching these kids how to properly do something, hey, these guys have been trained at the highest level to do these things. Bobby's dad, that was a quarterback in 1995, may have been a great football player. But what these guys are teaching them and what Bobby's daddy taught them might be a little different because these guys is being taught from the best, and they're so built on safety and the proper way to do things. And it's nothing against these Pee Wee coaches or. Listen, those guys do a great job. A lot of them do tremendous jobs. And I was just, saying that I wasn't slurring any of the people. I was just saying for reference, these guys are getting trained at the highest level, and this is how it should be taught. And once you get taught, it's hard to break bad habits. So it's a lot better to do things right the first time than it is to try to break a habit and learn how to do it right.
Well, and also a touchy subject is if or when really a young person should start playing football. Is there kind of a consensus among you and your refereeing colleagues about what the appropriate age is right now here in West Virginia?
No, they don't try to talk too much about that. You can kind of hear stuff in the area. Some people think that they ought to do away with those the littler kids when you see them about 6, 7 years old that really aren't made for football yet. I mean, to take a concussion or a neck injury to a kid for a sport, I mean, sometimes you kind of wonder, why are we doing this? But hey, listen, I love football, and if I had boys, I can promise you they'd have played football. My girls begged me to play football, but I wouldn't let them. But there's got to be an age, and it's hard to stick a number on a kid because each, I could drive when I was 14, but some kids still can't drive when they're 17. So to stick a number on it, it's hard to tell. And I think each parent should kind of pay attention and kind of maybe could tell when their kids are ready to play and when they're not ready to play.
Absolutely. I think it's something that kind of depends, person to person, parent to parent. But you just mentioned your daughters, and they go to Summers County High School. Summers County just today named their new athletic director, Kathy Blevins. Do you have any thoughts on Kathy Blevins? What do you know about her, and what do you, as far as like your daughters, coming at it from that perspective, what do you see as far as her being the athletic director?
Well, Kathy's a great person. I actually know Kathy. Her daughter is the head coach now there. Miss Blevins, she took Wayne's job for the coaching. I knew her husband, Rick. They're good people. I'm sure you could call Coach Carrico or Mr. Carrico, and those AD jobs are tough. Especially at Summers County. Miss Blevins, you don't only do the high school, you pretty much do the middle school. You do the whole county pretty much scheduling. So it's not just one school. She's got her hands full. The biggest thing is the blueprint. Once the blueprint, which Wayne was the AD, and Wayne's really good at anything he does. So I'm sure he's got the blueprint set for her. And Wayne's just a phone call away. So I'm sure she'll call him and he'll help her out. And it's just like anything else. If you got good coaches around you and good administration around you, I'm sure she won't have problems at all.
Let's get into the prediction game here a little bit, Tim. Let's look at last year. William Park won the AAA 23-15 over 15, but the AA and the single A games were blowouts. 39-0. Bridgeport beat Tulsa, and Magnolia beat 62-0 over East Hardy. What do you expect this year? Do you see a difference maybe in the southern part of the state with these northern teams, and is that why these blowouts are happening like that?
Well, it's tough. Football is a tough sport. You can have 22 kids and be legit for a long time. It takes an injury. Kind of like you do in college. It's how deep you are. Like Bluefield. Bluefield's a solid team year in, year out. Fred does a great job down there. He's got all of his skill guys back, but, he's going to have trouble. I think he lost most of his line, so it's going to be tough. I mean, in those schools up north, it should be a little more interesting this year because the new seedings or the new rankings come out, the double, triple A, and single A. I think that's going to help a lot of schools. And just, hey, listen, if you get the championship history out and you look at it, it just goes in trends. Sometimes, southern part of the state will whip the northern. Sometimes northern whips the southern. I wouldn't really put a whole lot of thought into that, just according, which kids line up to play that day.
And going off of the reclassification from last year, the fact that Summers County will now be in Class Single A, and the Lady Bobcats girls basketball team, who was long considered the power in Class Double A, and with your daughters still getting ready for their senior year, is the feeling an optimistic one right now?
Well, yeah, we like our chances, I'm sure. We hadn't won it in the last few years, but Wyoming East is a heck of a team. Stittsonville was a heck of a team. I mean, if we're in a different side of the bracket, we could have been right there playing for it each year. But like I said, Gilmer's got everybody back. They got that girl, she's 6'5". Got Kylie Shuff back. They're still going to be good. And I don't like to say stuff about other schools, but wonder how many kids St. Joe's brought in. I mean, how many kids come in to go to their school in single A. They could come out with 5 new kids, and I'm not complaining or anything like that. It's just that's the fact. But, hey, we'll go play just like any other team. We'll see what happens.
So, Tim, what do you think about the championship being all the way up in Wheeling this year? Do you think that it should be more of a central location like Charleston or something like that? That's a darn if I say it, darn if I don't. Have you ever been to the Super Six?
We have not been. Well, Tom and I have not been to the Super Six, but we are aware with it, the football state championship. The fact that they did decide.
If you ever get a chance to go there, Wheeling does it right. I mean, guys, that if you knew how much them guys, maybe one time you guys can do a segment up there. Maybe a Southern team will go this year, and you guys can go do a segment up there for what those the Super Six committee does for those kids. And it's a great atmosphere. All the stuff they do is just classy, and you just have to really go up there to see it firsthand. For me to sit here and tell you what they do, they get the kids' uniforms, they get their pads, they put them in these locker rooms just like the NFL. They give them memorabilia, toboggans, maybe shirts, just things, and it's really classy. And to take that away from these kids, and I'm not saying anybody couldn't do it. I know the Honeycutt Foundation had been trying to get it in Princeton for the last couple of years. I think they bid on it. I'm not saying those guys couldn't do it any better. Excuse me, but it's really nice, guys, and I don't want to take anything from Wheeling because, like I said, they do it right up there.
Well, we appreciate you joining us here today, Tim, for the change up, and best of luck this season. And hopefully, we'll make another interview with you here later on in the season. Good luck, man.
Hey guys, thank y'all. Hey, one more thing. Hey, there's going to be a lot of really good schools in southern West Virginia this year. I think it's kind of weird because we always talk about Noah Adams, what a great wrestler he is.
Right.
He's suiting up to play football this year for Independence. And with him coming out, he's brought another couple other kids that are coming out as well. And, it's really going to be a good trend. So if you guys get to go down there, that guy's got to be a beast. I mean, you're not a world contender in wrestling and not be pretty good at football. So, the guys, it's going to be a good season. It's going to be interesting. And, thank y'all for having me.
Hey, thanks, man, and we look forward to it, bud.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Have a good day.
All right, guys. I mean, we heard a lot of things from Tim there. Really, the thing that sticks out to me is that he's encouraged about the southern part of the state and the football season coming up. We have seen this disparity in the past couple of years, but there are a ton of good things going on this year.
We do have a lot of good talent here in southern West Virginia, even though, they're going to be wanting to redeem themselves because the fact that from our area we had 9 teams in the playoffs last year, but only one of them advanced to the second round of the playoffs, and they lost that second round game. That was Bluefield when they beat Weir at home but lost at home to Mingo Central. So a lot of redemption, I think, is going to be the key, kind of flying under the radar. And I think for a lot of schools that will suit them just fine in terms of springing a big surprise to the rest of the state.
Yeah, it's always advantageous when you can kind of play from that underdog position. You don't have as much to lose, as much to sacrifice. And I think a lot of it goes back to what we touched on last week with Coach Isaacs, where it depends on how much some of these younger guys on these teams really step up in that second or third year in the program and how much they really step up and become leaders to their teams and really contribute.
I think high school football is just so hard to predict. I mean, you might see a good core group, like you said, about some of these other schools come back, but with coaching changes, you don't know who's hitting the weight room in the summertime. You don't know how 7-on-7s went. Unless you're with that team every single day, it's really impossible to predict a high school football season.
It really is. Like we talked about with Midland Trail, their season, for example, last year, they came out, had a great win over Clay Battelle the second week of the season, but then they had a tough loss the following week to Meadowbridge. So you never really can tell from day to day even, let alone week to week, what kind of product you're going to have. But I think the opening week should give a good indication of how teams can expect to fare this season.
Do we expect blowouts like we've seen in the past? Is it going to depend on schedule?
Well, we'll see. I mean, coming up in a few minutes here, we got Wes Eddy, the head coach from Princeton, and they opened with Shady Spring this year. They opened with them last year and won their game 48-0. So I mean, it really, like we said, it's who comes up, who's working out the most this offseason, who's really focused on getting better. And that's what's so exciting about this time of the year is, there's so much unknown and there's so much new to come and see. And that's what I'm really looking forward to in these next couple of weeks, getting to see some of these training camps and first look at these new teams.
Yeah, and like Tom said, we do have Wes Eddy, the Princeton high school football coach, coming up later on in the show. Princeton's going to open up 3 games on the road, so we'll talk to him about that and some of his expectations for this upcoming season. You're listening to The Change Up on WVSSAC Sports.
Hey, I'm Denny Hamlin. You're listening to The Change Up on WOAY.
And welcome back into The Change Up on WOAY Sports here with Matt Digby and Tom Bill. We're into our high school football preview starting off the season. You can check us out at WVSSAC Sports on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you download the podcast at Change Up and share it with your friends and get the message out there, right, Tom?
Spread the word. And if you like the music, check out my man John Canada from Gritty City Records out of Richmond, Virginia. So check him out on SoundCloud if you like the beats that you're hearing in between.
And a shout out to Showtime Music for providing some of the audio equipment here. And Matt, we're ready for high school football, man.
We really are, and I can tell you someone else who is also ready, the second-year head coach of Princeton Senior High School, Wes Eddy, who joins us now on the Change-Up. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having us on the show.
Absolutely. So, like we mentioned, this is your second year. You've had 1 year with the Tigers after coming over from Webster County. Now that you've had some time to reflect on it, you were able to get a playoff appearance with the Tigers. How was that being 1-for-1 right now in terms of postseason?
Well, that was special to be able to get into the field of 16 after only being together for basically about 3 to 4 months, because I didn't get to leave Webster out of my teaching contract until June, so I got down here rather late. And, we had a lot of stuff to do in a short amount of time, and we were lucky to have some really, really good kids last year, and because of that, we did sneak into the playoffs, and to be able to set that type of bar right off the bat, that's special, and our kids want to get back. So they have a good attitude about things. They had a great off-season in the weight room and doing movement and flexibility, so that's what they expect of themselves now. So they've raised the bar, and their expectations are higher.
Well, talking about those expectations, Coach, you're opening up 3 games on the road here. You got Shady Spring to start the season. Last year, you got Shady 48-0, and then you got Bluefield and Martinsburg. Kind of mirror image of last year's schedule to start out, but in reverse because you're going to be on the road. How daunting of a challenge is that?
Yeah, that's very tough to not get to play at Honeycutt Stadium until basically the middle of September. The one thing that we did talk about that we're happy is the fact that 2 of those trips are, basically right in your backyard. Shady will take maybe 30, 40 minutes at most, and then, Bluefield, that's going to be 10, 15 minutes to get to there. So we're lucky that the away trips are real close right off the bat. The Martinsburg trip, that's just that's the nature of the beast right now in AAA WVSSAC football. There's nothing we can do about it. We got to play AAA teams, and Martinsburg's a team that we like to play because You can't run, you can't hide there. You know you're going to find out who you are when you go play them. And last year I thought we had an amazing game down here. It was 35-21, and you can go back at 2 plays. If we flip them around, it's 35-21 us. So it was a really good game, and we're looking forward to trying to make a little bit of a cross-the-state rivalry there that people look forward to each year.
Absolutely. And Coach, you guys started the season off really well with that big win over Shady Spring. And I don't want to take it down a negative road because, you did do a lot of positive things in that first year as head coach and got them to the playoffs. But I'm sure the season didn't end the way you wanted to, particularly the last 3 games of the regular season. What do you think? Was it a matter of your team kind of just running out of gas? And then how do you approach it this year to try to prevent that end of the season fall off?
Well, when we went into that lull at the end of the year, I think our kids understood where we were. We were a young program that, as I joked after we got done with Capital Midland, what we were going to do is stop and play Capital at 10:45 p.m. at Lately. That way we'd have played all 4 of the semifinalists in 4 consecutive weeks. So that just, as a young program, we weren't ready to take on that task. And, inside that, we might have played the best Wheeling Park team in their entire history. Point Pleasant has multiple kids that are going to Division I schools right now, and then Capital Midland, when they come out at you, they dress 150 kids about. So, we've played some very impressive teams, and the kids understand that. So there really wasn't like a negativity or hanging their heads. They just know, that's where they want to be. And I think that's the way we looked at it. We looked at it as we want to go beat Capital Midland and Wheeling Park. And that's what the kids were saying to each other leaving there. There really wasn't much of, oh, woe is me, this sucks, we're getting beat on. And it was really the opposite of it. The kids had a great attitude.
Well, and also the fact that, a lot of the teams you played, Wheeling Park, Greenbrier East, Point Pleasant, even James Monroe, who you won at, James Monroe made the playoffs in AA. So how did that kind of affect the team mentality, the fact that so late in the season you were playing a lot of playoff teams that qualified for the postseason?
Our kids understood that 7 of our 10 opponents, they were all playoff participants, and 5 of those 7 moved on to the second round. So we played really good competition, and that's something we talked about all year. You don't want to pad yourself and create a false type of sense of security. We played extraordinarily hard, and we played great competition. So our kids are used to that now. They like it that way, and they're looking forward to playing some really good teams this year.
So having gone through that challenge of such a tough schedule with such a young team, now everyone's a year older, and like you said, they've been working out, they've been doing flexibility, and they should be ready to hit the ground running here. How do you see, who do you think is going to kind of emerge as far as some of your starters? Who's going to step up and really take it to the next level to lead your team?
Well, we're really pleased. We have 8 kids back on offense that all receive significant playing time. So Christian Schaefer will be back as a second-year quarterback. Zach Standifer is back at the fullback position in our offense. And, those 2 really excellent athletes. We have Janai Hearn, and we have Jared Hand that'll get some balls handed off to them, and they're both spectacular athletes. And we're looking at Mohammed Abdul-Wahid. We have a tight end back, and we have Cole Cochran at split end. I mean, these are all seniors. These kids all know the terminology. They know the plays, and they're really looking forward to having a special season this year and doing some things that maybe haven't been done down in Princeton recently.
Coach, if you can, just for the people who out here who don't know a lot about Princeton football, just what type of offense are you going to run this year? You said you got a second-year quarterback. Are you going to let it fly, or you go ground and pound? And what type of defense do you expect to run?
Well, we run the Carnegie Mellon wing tee that Rich Erdely put in and ran for a long, long time up there in Pittsburgh, where I'm from. And now that we're so much more seasoned, we definitely should be able to, as I talked a million times last year about throwing the ball. We have to throw the ball when we want to and be competent at it, and not have to only pass when it's absolutely necessary. So you can look to us to throw a little bit more this year. And we're doing the same thing we did last year on defense. We play a 4-2-5 look and match up to the opponent's formations. And the kids did a nice job last year on defense. So we're looking to keep hustling and making tackles, and we think we'll be okay on defense if we can do that.
Yeah, and wing T is a formation that a lot of schools throughout the state use. How important is that in a way to kind of make some variations that separate yourselves from your opponents that in critical situations could lead to the difference between a win and a loss?
Yeah, that's what we do, is the fact that, some people think of wing T and they have their ideas already set about what it's going to be. We have some spread formations, we have some trips, we have some 2x2 stuff. So basically it's still wing T blocking schemes and type of plays, if you will, but we definitely use a lot of formations to try to hide what we're, we don't want to show our hand every time. We try to hide what we're doing a little bit.
So, Coach, what do you think about the future of West Virginia football from where you see it? Where is this game headed?
Well, everything looks like it's in really good shape with the way the kids are working and getting better. And we have a lot of kids that are playing at a high level in the college ranks right now, getting recruited outside of the state and in state. So it looks really strong to me right now. The only thing that I could see as ever a problem is the fact that, we keep losing our students because their parents don't have anywhere to work here in the state with natural resource extraction, down to its lowest level in, decades upon decades, and some other jobs that aren't available here anymore that used to be. That's the only thing I can see that's negative, is that we're losing our population. But the competition is great. Great coaches across the state everywhere. Really good athletes everywhere. So I think it's just as good a position as it's ever been.
And then just bringing it back to your team, there's going to be a lot of younger kids coming up this year, and you've got a good group of senior leadership. How important is it for those seniors to kind of guide the way for those guys and get them ingrained in the offense and really get things moving from the younger guys?
Well, in all sports in high school, people talk about senior leadership, and at some points it becomes cliche, but it definitely is important because it's their last go-around. And that's the reason it probably is always said about senior leadership. They know it's their last chance, and if they screw it up, then they're not going to get to, come back next year and do anything about it. So there's some urgency in our locker room. Kids want to do something special. They want to try to go another notch this year, get another step in the playoffs. And that's something that, Princeton, that doesn't always happen every year. So we're excited about the opportunity to do so, and our kids are raising the expectations, and they expect to get in the playoffs, and this year they want to try to make some noise.
Absolutely, and only not long to go now, August 26th. How has it been for the kids knowing that they're counting down the days? You're less than a month now from taking on the Tigers in your season opener, a battle with the Tigers, because you guys share the same mascot.
Our kids have a marker board in the locker room that they update every time that we work out. So they're really keen to the fact that, we're about 35 days away, and they're excited. They just can't wait to get back out on the field to show what they can do.
Well, Coach Whelan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Change Up on WVSSAC Sports. And you guys at home, you can check out the Princeton Tigers on August 26th. They'll play at 7:30 p.m. at Shady Spring High School. Coach Wes Eddy, good luck, man, and good luck to all your kids. You guys stay healthy, and hope you have a good year.
Thanks. You guys have done up there. You guys doing a fantastic job, and thank you for all the coverage you give us and get us out there in the communities. We appreciate it.
No problem, man. We look forward to seeing you guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
All right, guys, just another high school football conversation. Like we said earlier in the show, it's hard to predict, but one thing that sticks out to me is you hear the excitement. You talk about off-season football, weight room, training, counting down the days. But the Princeton schedule, those 3 games on the road, that's a tough one.
I think that's going to be important in terms of how they gel together, because you talk about the old cliche, you gel much better when you're forced to be in that setting on that bus traveling to the road game, especially when they go all the way up to the Eastern Panhandle to play Martinsburg. That's going to be a unique experience, one that not every team in the state gets to experience. But for what I saw when I went to speak with them last year when we did the preview for the Tigers, it was that excitement, that optimism. They were looking at it as a glass half full opportunity, getting to meet a new first-year head coach. Now that he has a year under his belt with the Tigers, a lot of the returning players know what to expect from him, and he knows what to expect from his players. I think that's going to help it even more so as the season goes on.
Right, and I'm obviously coming at it with kind of a fresh perspective, having never seen them play. But at the same time, you hear that optimism and you see what they did last year. And while, it didn't end pretty, there's certainly some tough challenges for those guys to face. And I think that any time that you go through and you face adversity and then you can come back and get a second crack at it, you're going to grow from that experience. They've grown together. They've created strong bonds. And, from things not only on the field, but like you said, that trip up to Martinsburg, that's a bonding experience for that whole team, something that's going to bring them closer together, and hopefully it'll allow them to be more competitive in some of these games against like a Point Pleasant, against a Greenbrier East, a Wheeling Park, and we'll see how it plays out.
I think a lot of things that stick out also is that the first two games, and Coach mentioned this, is that they're so close, because if you've ever played football, that bus ride back, you're cramping up, you're on a school bus, and you're just tired, dog-tired,
and
beat
it's 10 times worse when you've lost.
Yeah, if you've lost, an hour ride feels like 10 hours.
Yeah, so it's important that they play at Shady and then Bluefield before having to go all the way to Martinsburg. And, just looking at their schedule, they open up with Shady, Bluefield, Martinsburg, Lincoln County High School. So they got 2 AAA games, actually 3 in a row when they go up to Buchanan, Upster. And they have that off week before they come back down to Oak Hill. They play James Monroe. That's 2 AA teams. And they finish up with Wheeling Park, a AAA, Greenbrier East, a AAA. The very last game will be on November 4th at Point Pleasant, and that's away. That last game might be the deciding factor for so many teams, but especially for Princeton. That might be the deciding game to get them in the playoffs.
I think so, but especially the fact that Point Pleasant, for example, is going down to Class AA this year. The fact that, the way they give out points for playing teams from classes outside your own, I think Greenbrier East is going to be a game to keep an eye on as well, because Greenbrier East is going to be hungry to prove that last season, them making the playoffs for the first time in almost 2 decades was not a one-time thing, that they're back as a legitimate contender for a state title.
And because we're talking about football, all of this is contingent upon injuries.
Yep.
It's a lot of times at this time of the year it can be who's healthiest as much as who's the most talented football team. So hopefully everything works out for the best for Princeton, and really for all these teams. You never want to see anyone get injured out there. So hopefully it works out.
Yeah, Tom, I think just looking, what better bye week to have right in the middle of your schedule? You get healthy real fast in that week 6.
Well, yeah, and that's certainly the way you would draw it up if you could, having the bye week right in the middle of the season when guys are starting to get tired, they're starting to break down, and just having that extra week of recovery and just being smart, being able to take care of their bodies, I think will make a huge difference.
Exactly. Well, guys, you're listening to the Change Up on WRAY Sports. When we come back, we'll talk some PGA and hit up the Major League Baseball standings. Make sure you stick with us and check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and you'll find our links for YouTube and SoundHound, right? SoundCloud.
Check out SoundCloud.com.
I don't know what SoundHound is, but we'll figure it out.
It's something we're going to make up in the next couple weeks.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll keep it fresh. So check us out at WRAY Sports, and we'll be right back after this with some PGA.
Hi, I'm Kyle Larson, and you're listening to The Change Up on WOAY.
And welcome back into the Change Up on WRAY Sports. We're here with Matt Digby and Tom Bill. First half of the show, guys, we talked some high school football. We'll change gears a little bit here and talk about the PGA Championship, guys, this came 11 days after the Open Championship. That's way too soon.
It is way too soon. But then again, the number one reason, the number two reason, the number three reason, however many reasons you want to go down, the main reason why it's only been 11 days, because golf is in the Olympics. I guarantee it's not going to be this quick of a turnaround next year. I remember seeing Rory McIlroy speak earlier this week during one of his practice rounds. He says, he likes how it is where the PGA Championship is traditionally in August, even though it's usually the most miserable kind of weather, no matter where it is. August, he thinks, is the best fit for that tournament.
You know who else is talking about how great it is that it's this soon is Matt Digby. Because tell me you think it's too soon when I know you love this right here. We've got all these tournaments smash into one another. The Open just finished. We're in the PGA Championship now, and you got the Olympics to look forward to. So, I mean, you're in heaven right now.
It is a lot of fun getting to watch golf. I mean, unfortunately, we weren't able to watch a lot of the first round because we've been so busy with the local sports, Saints training camp, but that's definitely something we're going to keep an eye on. The season's final major, as they like to call it in the past. Glory's last shot, one of the nicknames given to the PGA Championship. So it's always a lot of fun.
We'll talk about that first round. We see Jimmy Walker in the lead. Ricky Fowler shot 2 under 68. He might be in some contention here, but really the conversation in the mainstream has been around Phil Mickelson. And if the question today, I saw an article on ESPN, it says, did he prove to be the toughest in Tiger's time? My answer is definitely no. I think he's the second place finishes and Tiger's major record. Tiger has not been the old Tiger as of late, but Mickelson did not prove anything to me.
I don't think so either. I mean, you take a look at, like you mentioned, major records. Tiger has 14, Mickelson only has 5. And granted, the one reason I think we're bringing up Mickelson is because this year's PGA Championship is at Baltus Road. That's where Phil Mickelson won it 11 years ago with a beautiful flop shot on the 72nd hole that I was just watching several YouTube videos of throughout the past few days, kind of getting in the mood for the PGA Championship. But yeah, like you say, it's those second place finishes that are going to come back to haunt his legacy. It's very unfortunate for him because you all know the story about how close he's come. 6 runner-up finishes alone in the U.S. Open, and then a runner-up finish last year or earlier this month in the Open Championship. And the Open Championship that most of the time, the score he posted, 17 under, would be good enough to win. But you had Henrik Stenson post 20 under.
Well, I guess if you're going to really break this down, like what is the toughest golfer? I mean, it depends on what you're defining as tough. And so this is Ian O'Connor's article here that we're referencing, and just kind of looking through it, he's trying to make the point that, Tiger Woods he did all these great things and he had this dominant run of success, but he's kind of faded out with injuries and some of the scandals and things that have plagued him over the years. Whereas Phil, he's still close to the top of his game, maybe a little over the hill now, but he's still competing for championships. He's still right there. So I guess I don't know if you want to say that he's tough because he endured so many second place finishes and so many tough losses and he was able to persevere through that. I guess I don't know. I don't really buy that.
Yeah.
But Phil's a great golfer, don't get me wrong. He's one of the greatest the game's ever seen. He just had the unfortunate circumstance of having to live in Tiger's shadow for so many years.
And O'Connor does mention, he says, just to quote him here, Mickelson also reminded everyone that he is the toughest player from the Tiger Woods generation other than Tiger himself. So I think he, would agree if he was here that, Tiger dominated hands down, no doubt.
So yeah, but by that standard, I guess you could make that argument that he is the toughest golfer.
But really, that's just kind of saying he's second place again.
Yeah, which is that's what it is. I mean, no one's better than Tiger in that era. So
right.
It's kind of the conversation as far as the greatest starts and ends with Tiger. So I guess if you're gonna have a real argument trying to distinguish guys from one another, you have to kind of just put him up here and then start breaking everyone else down.
And I think the other thing is the fact that he is the sentimental favorite. A lot of fans are Phil fanatics, as certain broadcasters like to say, and we remember a lot of golf fans will remember the first of those 6 U.S. Open runner-up finishes coming in 1999 at Pinehurst number 2 when his wife was pregnant and was due to give birth, and he was saying, it was kind of a helpful distraction that he was able to focus on the golf and always knowing that if he ever got the call from his wife, Amy, that their first child was going to be born, he was going to be by her side. And that really helped him relax and settle down and play a fantastic final round alongside the eventual champion, Payne Stewart.
I guess, he kind of makes the argument that there are so many other legitimate contenders. You talk about David Duvall, Vijay Singh, Ernie Els, Sergio Garcia never got over the hump. If the one person who came closest was Phil, but again, Phil's never been ranked number 1 in the world. He's never won Player of the Year, and he's 46 years old now, and he has that arthritis issue. It's kind of now or never with Phil.
Right.
I see maybe a couple more years.
But I mean, you guys would probably know this better than me, but I mean, have any of those other guys that you just mentioned, have they been ranked number 1 in the world at any point in time, or has it really just been Tiger and now kind of Rory?
Well, the names mentioned here, David Duvall is a former world number 1, but he only has 1 major championship, and right now he's really a part-time golfer, part-time commentator / analyst. You have Vijay Singh, who has won quite a few majors. He was also, for a time, the number 1 golfer in the world, and a lot of the media were trying to make
Is this pre-Tiger though?
This is not pre-Tiger.
So
this
he
was
did
during
this during Tiger.
Correct. Yeah. Duvall was number 1 around early 2001, kind of as Tiger was still winning majors, but starting to go into the mid-career slump, so to speak. And then Vijay Singh, at the very end of Tiger's mid-career slump, took over as the world's number 1 golfer, although he right now is on the Champions Tour.
And you're talking about a young Tiger at the time too, a very young Tiger.
Younger than 30 years old too. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a lot to take in. But as a fan of the sport, as someone who loves to play the sport, I want to see Tiger Woods come back.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to. I mean, certainly just for the legacy aspect of it. And we always want to see, the greats stay great for as long as we can, like the Michael Jordans. And, you just saw this past year with Kobe Bryant and Derek Jeter the year before that. When these guys' runs do kind of end, it's a little sad just because you love being able to see that greatness year in and year out. And, I mean, Tiger really hasn't been there since was his last major championship 2008?
2008 at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, where he basically won playing 91 holes on one leg.
So he was able to gut his way through that. One of the all-time great performances that'll definitely contribute to his legacy. But since then, we're talking about 8 years now. He hasn't won anything of major consequence in that time. So for him to get back at this point in his life, and I mean, he's already basically shut it down for the rest of the season. He's been dealing with so many injuries. It just seems like every time he gets close to making a comeback or getting in a few tournaments and starting to gain some momentum, something else sets him back. And at this age, you recover from injuries so much slower than when you were 25, when he was first coming up and you could get through these things. So I don't know. I don't think. I mean, you never say never.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's going to be tough.
I maybe see 1 or 2 in his future. Like you said, it does depend on his health tremendously. He was very well known for his training, being in the weight room, one of the first golfers to really take that training to the extra step. We've read articles about the Navy SEAL training and so forth. The question is now, was that too much of a toll on his body to have this later part of the career? And that's where we saw Jack Nicklaus and some of the all-time greats like Palmer. They carried it throughout, even into their 40s or 50s. They were winning.
They really did. I mean, a lot of golf fans remember Jack Nicklaus winning the Masters at age 46 when most thought he was done playing competitively. He was just there because he was Jack Nicklaus. He's still one of the greatest golfers of all time. And you see golfers have great performances in their middle years of life, so to speak. I mean, we saw a couple years ago Tom Watson nearly winning the British Open at age 59, 58. Yeah. All he had to do was hit a good second shot on the 72nd hole. He would have been able to 2-putt for par and win the Open in 2009. Greg Norman, I know, has come close a couple times, although I think he's another one of those always could have beens but never did. And he fits in that category as well.
But what I think the difference is when you look at that generation of guys versus some of the guys today, Tiger, and now Rory's getting a lot of the same criticism. Like, I think you're working out too much, you're doing too much lifting.
Yeah.
The guys from the Jack Nicklaus generation, that wasn't really a thing that people did as much, especially when you're talking about golf. Guys didn't really think about, exercise and nutrition and things like that in terms of golf. And you look at someone like Tiger Woods, who got really big into the Navy SEAL training and the lifting, but maybe it would have done us some good to also concentrate on flexibility and things that kind of keep your body loose and being able to stay mobile so that, you do many thousands and thousands of golf swings that he's done. Eventually it's going to take a toll on your back if you're not also working on flexibility training. So that may be where we're seeing these issues break down with him, whereas we didn't see it with previous generations.
I think the obvious is his social life was the ultimate breakdown that really kind of.
That was the start of it for sure.
Yeah, I could only imagine the mental toll something like that would take on you. And like you said, it was the start of the breakdown, but it's a conversation for another day. Let's switch gears again here. Let's talk some Major League Baseball, guys. We are past the All-Star break, so it means October is really just around the corner. You know, sometimes baseball gets forgotten about once football starts, but guys, we got some exciting races. We see the Cubs leading all of Major League Baseball with 60 wins, but you got the Nationals at 59, the Giants, who seem to always, every other year, kind of be there. They're at 59 wins.
This is their odd year, their even year where they come out and win. It's
2010,
every even year
2012,
that they've done it.
2014, 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing that's also really standing out to me is Cleveland, how well they've been doing, and they went on that big win streak. And ironically, they were playing series against teams from the same area that the Cavaliers were playing in the postseason around that same time. So that's kind of a nice similarity between the two franchises from Cleveland. But I think if it's a Cubs and Indians year to ever get it done, I think this is it. The way they've been playing baseball throughout the season and the way the Cubs have been playing throughout last season when they did very well reaching the postseason. I think if we're ever going to see one of those two win a World Series title in our lifetimes, I think 2016 is going to be the year.
The Cubs and Cleveland.
That would be something. We almost had, back in 2003, before the Red Sox broke their 86-year curse, we almost had a Cubs-Red Sox World Series that was spoiled by a little Aaron Boone home run.
Right. Grady Little sticking with Pedro Martinez one pitch too long, and then Steve Bartman didn't help the Cubs
thing
either.
We like to call the Bartman catch. That kind of spoiled that moment for us. But yeah, the Cubs. This is really. I mean, I know it's been a long time since Cleveland's done it, but I mean, this is a team that's just been plagued. We're talking well over 100 years at this point, and they're so good this year. They have so much offensive firepower, and Theo Epstein is just proving that. I mean, he is maybe the game's all-time great executive. You look at the amount of talent. I forget how many All-Stars it was on this year's team that he either drafted or acquired at some point through the Red Sox, through the Cubs. And now he just made another big move where he brought in Aroldis Chapman. Granted, they gave up a lot to get him. They gave up a huge prospect, but they have the luxury of having such a talented team while having such a strong farm system that they can afford to sacrifice a prospect for the short term because, I mean, it's been so long. You know, when you get a chance to go for a World Series, you got to go for it. And that's what they're doing with this Chapman move here.
Did they give up too much for Chapman? And Chapman, a player who's very controversial. I heard an interview with Theo Epstein yesterday talking about how they did their homework on Chapman. They met with him. They met with the Yankees and talked about his day-to-day activities. You know, did he clean up his act? But the question is, other than his personal life, did they give up too much for Chapman?
I don't think so, because the way Chapman has performed in the past, not just with the Yankees earlier this year, but with the Reds, he is that good of a talent for them. And like you say, Theo Epstein does his homework. It's not a Boston bias that you're saying Theo Epstein's one of the great general managers, because it really is true.
Done it.
He will have done his homework on Chapman. If he wanted to make a move for the closer, it's because he knew he was getting something special. And that's, in my opinion, exactly what the Cubs are getting.
Yeah, I mean, you break it down as a pound-for-pound trade. Yeah, they probably gave up too much just from everything. I mean, I don't watch a ton of minor league baseball and break down these guys at bats, but everything I've heard about the prospects heading over to the Yankees is that the Yankees got a very good deal for giving up Chapman, especially considering the two other arms they have in their bullpen with Andrew Miller and Dellin Betances. It just didn't really make sense for them to hold on to all three of those guys. So yeah, the Cubs probably gave up too much, but I mean, the Yankees. Yeah, you know, you're pointing out right now. The Yankees are sellers at this point. They have a winning record, but the way the MLB has set up the wild card now, and this change happened a couple of years ago, where it's now 2 wild card spots, and they basically play for a 1-game playoff. So 1-game playoff, anything can happen. So you really can't rely on that. And there's 2 teams in front of them in their division, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. So in my opinion, if you can't make a push towards winning that division, and then you've still got 2 teams ahead of you, then you got to just look at your team objectively and say, it's not going to happen this year, and start to sell off pieces where it makes sense. And I think they got a very good haul. And then looking at the other side, the Cubs, you're in a position where you can overpay a guy a little bit because getting Chapman can really put you over the hump and win you the World Series.
What sticks out to me is how close every division is. You have the top 2 teams, top 3 teams in some league, like the American League East, within 3 games. The wild card has 6 or 7 teams, all within 4 games. I mean, this is going to come down to the last month, most likely, as we've seen in a couple of years past, the last game, and then that 1-game playoff.
Yeah, and we've seen several years, not in the not too distant past, where we've had play-in games to get into the playoff game. So that's going to be extra bonus for baseball fans, getting to see all that excitement. And
do you like the 1-game playoff?
I'm still undecided on it. I got to be honest.
I hate it.
It's still taking a while for me to, kind of come around to it. Maybe I might not ever come around to it.
I don't understand it.
Here's my thing about it is that you play 162 games, and the reason you play so many more games in baseball than you do in a basketball or another sport like that is because baseball is a game that has so much variance in a single game. I think from Moneyball they said that basically luck or chance, random variance can account for up to 4 runs either way per game, and the skill counts for maybe 1 or 2 runs per game. So over the course of a long season, theoretically, that luck part will even out and the team with the better skill wins. So you need a large sample size to really determine who's good. And then when you take that whole season and you crunch it down into 1 game where it's just pure variance basically, anything can happen. It's not really a true indicator of who the better team is all the time, especially when you have to consider who's going to start that 1 game, which comes down to who's been rested well enough, who's healthy, and that can put a better team at a disadvantage in some cases.
I mean, I personally hate it. You expand the wild cards, I like that part of it, but 1 game, like you said, in baseball, it just doesn't match. And if you think of it from an MLB standpoint, why not have the best of 3 where you can make money off television, you can make money off ticket sales. We see that Major League Baseball and pretty much all pro teams now do these old-time uniforms. They'll have a special day for those. Why not
Chris Sale
have?
didn't like it all.
Yeah, Chris Sale got a little happy with the scissors in Chicago there. But, he's had problems with management there since the Adam LaRoche controversy that started off the summer.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's Chris Sale's maybe
not
not a good situation.
You really start to ask yourself after a couple of these incidents. But going back to in general, I think we're setting up for an exciting postseason. And like I said before, I do think it is, either the Cubs or Indians to lose. And who knows, maybe if they go through a slump in the late summer and they're in a position where, like we talked about, they're in that 1-game playoff and they don't play to the best of their ability, or if they go in as the underdog and they play a spectacular game and pull an upset, then we'll be saying...
What's really going to sway things, is coming up in a couple days now, the trade deadline. So, a lot of teams, we like to fit it so close, and what that can usually mean is it muddles up who considers themselves a buyer and who considers themselves a seller at this time of the year. So depending on who moves, if anybody, you look at a team like the White Sox and you would think that they would be candidates to be sellers, especially with what just happened with Chris Sale. So if Chris Sale gets moved, whatever team he goes to is going to have a major advantage heading into the postseason. So the trade deadline can sway things in a major way.
I agree. And I think that Miami Marlins, they are looking for pitching. If they get 1 more starter and maybe a closer, I think they could, they're in that second spot in the wild
card now. Who else
now.
can use a pitcher? The Boston Red Sox. A guy like Chris Sale would look real good in the Red Sox uniform.
If you don't know about the Chris Sale situation, just to backtrack a little bit, he got upset because the old-time uniforms they were scheduled to wear on his start didn't like the way it fit. So
they're uncomfortable, man.
You got to be comfortable, especially in how hot is it in Chicago? I'm sure it's not that much different from how it is here.
I don't care if he's comfortable or not. He's a Major League Baseball player getting paid millions of dollars, and he took a pair of scissors to not only his uniform but multiple uniforms in the clubhouse.
I think that's a cry for help, trying to get out of
Chicago. Cry for help.
He wants out bad.
It's definitely something, and it's just being a professional athlete. I don't think that's the right.
Not really setting a role model for the kids out there.
Yeah, not at all. Especially you shouldn't run with scissors. Nevertheless,
not really.
Chop up cut your teammates.
All right, guys. Well, you're listening to the Change Up on WRY Sports. Make sure you check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And when we come back, we'll talk some NFL, And some college
NFL's
football.
here.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
here. All right, we're going to talk about some of the top moves and maybe the lack of moves in the pro atmosphere of football. And we'll talk some college football playoffs. You're listening to The Change Up on WOY Sports.
I'm Jimbo Fisher, and you're listening to The Change Up on WOAY.
And welcome back into The Change Up on WOY Sports here with Matt Digby and Tom Bill. Thanks for joining us. You can check us out at WOY Sports on Facebook and Twitter. Guys, we kind of rounded the globe here with PGA, MLB, some high school football. Let's finish it off with some big-time football as we talk college football and the NFL. Let's start with the college guys. They are changing the playoff tweaks. They're going to change the dates. They're trying to avoid that New Year's Day game and that lag, really, I don't think for the players, but for the fans.
Well,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think also the thing is it's New Year's Eve that they're trying to avoid, because you saw New Year's Day 2015, the first year, they got all those great numbers. But of course, there were great matchups in signature bowl settings, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. Last year, you had them on New Year's Eve, which for me as a college football fan was awful because you didn't really get to spend a lot of time watching those games, and they were at 4:30 and 8, which granted, that I think those are the best times for a football game if you want to have them both on the same night. But I think New Year's Day, just because of the whole tradition era and the fact that, for me, some might accuse me of being a Big Ten homer in this scenario because I'm coming from Big Ten country, but the fact that the Rose Bowl wants to keep its setting of late afternoon on New Year's Day, that's fine. Why does the Sugar Bowl need to be absolutely right after? Why can't it be any other point of the game, any other point of the year, or the next day?
I don't know. Why did they ever think that this was a good idea to put these games on New Year's Eve? You're talking about the one night of the year where people are, what are they doing? They're driving around all day, they're picking stuff up, picking up party supplies, and then they're going to a party all night and they're socializing. They don't want to sit down and watch a college football game, at least not seriously. Maybe they have it on in the background, but if even that, no one's paying attention to it. Why would you not move it to like a New Year's Day or something like that? People like to, they wake up, they're a little groggy the next morning, a little slow, but they want to kind of just relax and enjoy the new year. What better way to do that with some college football that means a lot?
And that's exactly my argument. Tom, you did a better job articulating it than I did just now. But yeah, it is a problem that really should have been fixed a long time ago and finally is being fixed right now.
Well, I think the big thing is the games themselves, the location themselves, that gives that fan base, wherever they go, Dallas, the Rose Bowl out in California, wherever, it gives them a atmosphere for the game. It maybe hypes up the New Year's tradition there, but as you said, for the everyday fan who has, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever, might have plans for you on New Year's.
Everyone's got plans on New Year's. It's one night of the year. Everyone has plans.
Right.
And what are they worried about on New Year's Day? They're worried about competing with the Winter Classic. I mean, that does good numbers, but college football is always going to do better than that.
Oh, yeah. And so I think, I think it's a good thing that they're moving these semifinals to later dates. I just avoid the whole New Year's Eve thing altogether if it was me, but
It baffles me.
but
It's crazy. It should have been fixed a long time ago, and it's about time it was fixed.
yeah, so we kind of commend them that they're taking those extra steps and taking an extra look at it. At the end of the day, it used to be that college football is so stubborn they wouldn't fix anything. At least they're now talking, they're in the room, they're communicating.
Yeah, and even still, for some reason, we can't get this done until 2017.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a bunch of red tape going on with that, but it's
It has to do with the whole rotating system, which is another issue I have a problem with. Why not hold the two semifinals in the same place year after year? That way it's kind of some familiarity.
A little consistency.
The organizing committees know what to expect.
You could build a tradition that way.
See, I like it moving personally. I like seeing it go from especially with the Cotton Bowl now in the mix. The Cotton Bowl was just an old football tradition, getting them back into play. And you talk about Texas and Miami and some of these bigger cities, it's a rotating schedule that for fan bases too, that you know, if it's East Coast team, maybe you get to see them in Miami that year, or if you're out west, you get to go to the Rose. It changes it up, and sometimes you just don't get that same familiarity every year.
You know, I think as long as it's played in a warm weather city,
Yeah,
I'm okay with it. Because even when you're up north just watching the game, it's nice to see someplace that looks like it's warm, like it's, you know, not like when they did the Super Bowl in New York a couple of years ago.
Right.
That was brutal.
I mean, it could have been a lot worse in New York. You got to give them credit for that.
They got lucky with the weather.
They
I'll
did
tell
luck
you
out
that.
with the weather.
Well, I mean, the weather too affects scoring, which affects viewership. Everybody wants to see touchdowns at the end of the day, and you're
Absolutely.
playing in.
And they want to see close games too. They don't want to see Alabama shutting out Michigan State 38-0 either.
All right, guys. Well, let's move on from college football. We very excited for college football, obviously, but not too much going on there this week. A lot of training camps getting started up, and spring practice is already out of the way. So we'll hit that up a little bit later in our shows. But now let's NFL, guys. We saw an article today by Dan Graziano by ESPN, and he's talking about the NFL's 20 most impactful moves. We were just kind of talking earlier about some of the moves. We saw Ryan Fitzpatrick get signed. But for me, Tom, it's obviously the Tom Brady suspension.
Well, that's the thing everyone's been talking about for almost 2 years now. It seems like this thing's been dragging on forever. I don't know how we've gotten so much content, so much material out of it. It's just kept dragging on and on and on. And it's over, but unfortunately for someone like me, it didn't turn out the way that we think it should have, at least from my
At the
my
same
perspective.
time, how many fans are going, it turned out the way exactly it should
I'm
have?
sure a lot of fans are happy about it, and we're not going to sit here and break down, you know, the science of what actually happened and look at things objectively. Should he or should he have not been suspended? Because the fact of the matter is, he is suspended for the first 4 games of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback from the Patriots. And this is going to be a major challenge. I mean, this is someone who, he's been in the fold now for a couple of years with the Patriots. Hasn't had too much of a chance to get game action. He played a little bit. If you remember the year they won the Super Bowl in 2014, they started out 2-2, and in that fourth game against Kansas City where they lost really badly, Brady was actually pulled from that game. He had a couple of interceptions, really just wasn't sharp at all, and they brought Garoppolo in. He actually did pretty well. He drove them down the field. They scored a touchdown. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly he can gel with this team. And they've brought in a lot of guys around him to help him out. The defense is revamped from last year, bringing in guys like Terrence Knight and Chris Long. And then on the offensive end, they've gone out and they've complimented Rob Gronkowski, the best tight end in football, with arguably a top 5, definitely top 10 tight end in Martellus Bennett, bringing him in from the Bears. So they've got that two-headed monster back in a similar mold that they had with Aaron Hernandez. Not quite the same thing. Bennett's more of a bigger guy, similar to Rob Gronkowski, except for the fact that he's more of a short route runner, and Gronkowski likes to go down the seam. But it'll be interesting to see how Garoppolo does with all those weapons at his disposal.
You know, the whole Deflategate thing, to me, I really don't want to talk about too much here because it's been said and done for years now, like you said. But I really think the fans aspect has changed. You brought up, Matt, that maybe the fans are happy. I don't see that. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you know, diehard, don't like the Patriots, you know, always seem to run into each other in the playoffs. But this is something that every quarterback does. They scuff up the ball. They overinflate it. They deflate it. This is absolutely ridiculous to me.
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think from a fan's perspective, those who aren't fans of the Patriots, they're going to be eager to see just exactly how Garoppolo does. Much like after Brady got injured several years ago and Matt Castle had to come in and basically play the entire season with the Patriots.
We're 11-5 with Matt Castle.
Yeah.
He did go 11-5, yeah. So they just want to see Garoppolo have that opportunity, yeah, I think in a sense, just to see how he does, especially because he knows he's playing in the shadow of Tom Brady.
I don't want to see it. I want to see the outcome, but I'd much rather see one of the greatest quarterbacks in all-time history play the game.
It's just a shame because so many people view his legacy as tainted just for this one reason. And that's something that unfortunately can't be changed at this point.
Right.
But I think what people should realize is, you know, whether you agree with the Tom Brady deflated footballs or not, this issue a long time ago, basically after Brady won his original appeal and was able to play at the beginning of last season, this issue became about, does Roger Goodell have the ability to be judge, jury, and executioner when handing out discipline? And that's something that's not going to just affect the Patriots in this one circumstance. It's going to affect everyone going forward. So whatever team you're a fan of, this could easily be your guy in a different context.
And it's not just Brady and Deflategate, but you talk about all the other scandals he's had to deal with in the very short-term past. You had the Ray Rice incident. You had Greg Hardy. You have we can go on and on with all the different.
He's been exposed for his lack of consistency in those situations, and so really what this would have done is take that power away from Goodell and kind of distribute it in a way so that it's more fair, these suspensions. They have someone overseeing just the suspension aspect of it, and Roger Goodell can do what he does best, which is make the league a lot of money.
Well, moving on now, I think the story of the offseason was so many moves with people leaving their teams. You could talk about Brock Osweiler leaving the Broncos, coaching. Adam Gase goes to Miami, he leaves the Bears. You name it. Josh Norman down in Carolina, he's now gone.
With the Redskins.
Yeah, he's with the Redskins after he was franchise tagged, but he, at the end of the day, just asked for too much money, I guess, than the Panthers want to play. We see it every year. Free agency kind of dominates the news, and it's who left. Who fills these holes? We see Ryan Fitzpatrick got signed, today?
Yes,
with the Jets.
1 year, $12 million. He's going to stay with the Jets for another year.
So just filling the holes, I think, is the theme of the offseason, as it probably is every offseason.
Yeah, and you will see this a lot where teams go out in the first day of free agency and they just spend like crazy and try to make these, huge, splashy impact moves. And sometimes it works out. Oftentimes it doesn't. I think the Giants were the team this year. They went out and I forget, it was something like $200-something million they committed to players in like the first couple of days of free agency. They got Olivier Vernon, brought in a couple of guys, secondary and whatnot. So their defense will probably be a little better, but even with all that money spent, I don't think that puts them into the top conversation, even in the NFC East. The Redskins are going to be a very good football team. Tony Romo's back and healthy in the NFC East, so they've got right away those two teams right in front of them. Philly's kind of rebuilding, so they're not really in the picture. But all that money that the Giants spent, and in the end, is it really going to make that big of a difference? So I think a lot of teams need to consider when they go out and spend this kind of money, is it worth it?
Is it worth it, Matt, to leave these holes and to move on?
I think it's going to be very interesting to see because you got to evaluate each individual player in each of the 32 teams. Like the one thing I'm interested to see, for example, we just came from Saints training camp on Thursday. James Laurinaitis joining as a linebacker. He was acquired as a free agent in the offseason. How well he does adjusting to a new system, because it's always going to be very interesting to see, how Martellus Bennett does, how Chris Long does with the Patriots.
And the nice thing about what the Patriots do is they're free agents. They typically don't go for those big time moves. Like they brought in Chris Long for like a couple of million. They take a lot of really low risk deals on guys who other teams might consider over the hill.
Right.
But so let's go back to the Saints though. Speaking about the Saints and their contract situation, they sign a guy like Laurinaitis. They're kind of up against it with the cap, and Drew Brees, he's got 1 year left on that deal. And he says he wants to get it done by week 1. So that's going to be a situation that's going to be real tough because he's not going to be like Tom Brady and say, I'll play for 40% of what I'm worth just to help the team go out and sign guys. He knows he's one of the top quarterbacks in this game, and he deserves to be paid like it, quite frankly. So it's going to be a tricky situation.
You think they should pay?
I think they do, yeah. I think they've maybe put themselves in a tough position to do so, though, with some of the other signings they've made over the last couple of years.
Do you max Drew Brees? Being this old?
I'm not sure if I would max it, but I would definitely want to keep it because the thing that when we heard from Drew Brees, he knows he's not getting any younger. He knows that science and technology is kind of helping extend his career to the point where maybe a generation or 2 generations ago he would have already retired by now. But like you say, he knows he's still a good quarterback. He deserves to make a lot of money, and rightfully so. I mean, we are talking about a Super Bowl MVP here.
He led the league in passing last year, so you say what you want, he's old, whatever. He's still producing at a top level. And until he shows he can't do that anymore, maybe you don't give him a 5-year deal like they did back in 2011.
Right.
But he deserves to be paid higher than Joe Flacco, that's for sure.
I think so, yeah. Hopefully we don't see what happened to Peyton Manning happen to Drew Brees, and I know you definitely don't want to see something like that happen to Tom Brady.
Absolutely
because
not.
They are but they are roughly the same age. Brady graduated. He was drafted a year before Brees, so they are aware it's well in the sunset of their careers.
I 100% do not sign him. I let him go.
So you think, so what do they do then? What do you do if you don't have an elite quarterback in this game? Where are you? And they're, even with Breeze, they're fighting just to hang on to any sense of legitimacy. They went 7-9 last year with Breeze doing everything he could. I mean, he was getting beat up last year. He had nothing around him. The defense was absolutely terrible. I mean, they're hoping to be a little bit better this year, but without Drew Brees, where is that football team?
Exactly. That's my point. Let him play out his year. Don't sign him to a big mega contract. Let him play out the year and then move on. If you're going to have to rebuild the whole thing, just go ahead and do it with the quarterback. We saw the Colts move on from Peyton Manning, and it's worked out tremendously for them. In the aspect of now they have Luck, Andrew Luck, who, he's the future of the league.
That's all well and good when there's an Andrew Luck waiting to be picked at number 1 overall, and when you can drop to that level to get him. And that happened because Peyton Manning had to sit out an entire year, and they had to bring in Curtis Painter to play quarterback, which is a great way to get Andrew Luck. But I think if you're the Saints and you're really serious about trying to make this team a contender, which I think they are from seeing them today, everyone seems very optimistic, as you normally are at this time of the year in training camp, but I think they really want to get after it. And I think the key to doing that and advancing this team rather than hitting the reset button is to keep Drew Brees around.
As we talked about with baseball, it's kind of do or die time. You either buy or you sell. You're saying definitely buy with Drew Brees with the Saints.
At least for 1 year, and not for full max, but just to see, what he's capable of. Because I do think he still has 2 or 3 good years in him. If he can put it together, and the offseason acquisitions that the Saints have brought in, both from the draft and from free agency, I do think, obviously, it's going to be very indicative what we see from them in Week 1 against Oakland. But they do have a playoff caliber team.
Don't you think Brees' numbers lie to you, though? Because they throw it so much out of the backfield. He's hitting the running back for a good chunk of yards out of that passing game.
Yeah, but they put up the points. They get the points on the board, and at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. I mean, you look at a game like the Giants-Saints game where Brees threw 7 touchdowns to Eli's 6. It ended up being a 52-49 final. If they have any kind of defense, that's a blowout win. If they hold them to 28 points, which is still giving up a lot, that's still a blowout win. Right. And when you have a guy that can lead your offense to those types of numbers, it is crucial to your team's success. They just need to get pieces around him. And I think what Brees is going to command is he's probably going to want at least a 3-year deal, I would think, in the range of probably $75 million. And if the Saints don't get that done, and he said his deadline is Week 1, if they don't get it done, he's probably going to play this year out. And then a team like maybe the Jets, they've got Ryan Fitzpatrick for this next year, but they're looking for a long-term solution. And, Brees is not a 10-year long-term solution, but the guy they can hold on to for 3 years with those receivers they've got and really make a run at the Patriots. That might be a team that will go out and pay the man.
I still stand by it. I let him play out this year, and if he wants to go to the Jets, we've seen the Jets pick up plenty of quarterbacks in the late stages of their career. It doesn't work out to me. You have to move on from a franchise standpoint. I think the Steelers will be in the same situation maybe 2 or 3 years down the road with, Big Ben. He's going to be the same thing. He gets beat up.
They can keep him healthy. They got to keep him upright.
Yeah.
That's the key for any quarterback. No quarterback's good when they're getting hit all the time.
Yeah, and we saw that with Brady. That was really the
100%.
downfall of offensive line.
That offensive line just fell apart, and they were down to their 3rd, 4th strings in some cases, and it showed against the pass rush like the Broncos.
I think if I saw the Saints, make more moves, I'd be more willing to give Drew Brees some money if he had more weapons. But we've seen, Kenny Stills is in Miami now, right? So they've let go of his weapons just as much, and that defense is just awful.
I mean, the great relationship he had with Jimmy Graham for many years, and they trade Jimmy Graham, not this most recent offseason, but the offseason before. So now he's having to get to know a brand new tight end, for example. And I know he's embracing, the challenge of getting to meet with, I think you mentioned Colby Fleener, the veteran from Stanford. But you have that kind of relationship, you don't want to interfere with it. But that's exactly what they did last year when they sent Jimmy Graham to Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly easy to second guess that move at this point. And at the time, I didn't really agree with it. Jimmy Graham was probably just a tiny step below Gronk at that point. The difference being that Gronk is also an elite blocker, and Jimmy Graham is basically just a massive wide receiver that's tough to cover. But yeah, I mean, they were trying to get more help on the offensive line from Brees, bringing in Max Unger, and it's just, it doesn't matter when you don't have a defense.
And you're talking about a Saints team that still has to go through Carolina,
twice a year.
Yep. I don't know about Atlanta. Matt Ryan question's still there, but they have a good young coach focused on defense. Carolina's defense is stellar. They're going to beat up Breeze.
It's going to be a real tough year for him again. And if he has to go out and throw 7 touchdowns for his team just to barely win a game,
Right.
It's going to be another long year for them.
Well, speaking of a long year, it's been a long year waiting for football to come back around the corner, but
Yes, it has
we
been.
are almost there, as we keep telling you. Guys, we want to thank you for listening to The Change Up on WAY Sports. For Matt Digby and Tom Bill, we'll see you again next week.
Go Pats.